Today, we're going live with Thomas Maynard, the Vice President of Business Development for the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, also known as GPEC. GPEC is an amazing organization that offers so much to our business community. So whether you're a new organization looking to enter our market or you're existing, they're the group that you want to know. All right, everyone. I'm so excited. Today, we actually have Thomas Maynard of the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. The Greater Phoenix Economic Council is a wonderful resource that I feel like not many people necessarily know about. So I thought it would be a great opportunity for him to share a little bit more about what he does, both personally and professionally, and how he helps individuals to, get acclimated here in the local business community. So thank you, Thomas, for being here.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I think we should first start with who is the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, and what does like the day in the life of your job look like?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good question. We get that all the time. So the Greater Phoenix Economic Council will go by GPEC for short. It's a little bit easier to say. We are the regional economic development group for the Phoenix metro area. So what does that mean? We're technically a nonprofit. We represent all of the cities in the Phoenix metro area. There's 22 different cities and towns that make up our service territory. And our mission is quite simply to help grow the economic base for the market.
So are you working with companies that are already here or new companies coming into the state?
It's definitely both. Our primary objective is to help companies that are not here today that are looking to grow and expand. That's our key customer target, but we also get companies all the time that maybe have some operations here in the market. They're looking to grow and they want to know, should we grow this in Phoenix, in Denver, Salt Lake City? Our role is to represent the market and hopefully have that investment occur here in the market.
Yeah. So you're working with a lot of California companies, I know.
Yep.
California continues to, people are looking for low cost of living and a better quality of life. What are some of the other conversation or topics that you traditionally have with companies looking to move into the state of Arizona?
Yeah, traditionally, the economic development field in general was very much driven on cost, tax incentives. What is the over operating cost between different markets? And that's still definitely part of the conversation. What we're noticing is today it's shifting much more rapidly to where are the people, where's the talent? So companies are now really what's driving their site selection decision beyond cost, beyond finding the perfect real estate option is actually we need to be in a market where we know we're going to hire the people that we need to hire. So that's what's really leading the conversation. So our role has kind of shifted over the last 5 to 10 years. Instead of the traditional economic development, evaluating what your tax liability will be like, what incentives you may qualify for. That's still part of the conversation. But today, the first question is, tell me where people are hiring, where we're finding talent. That's why we're tapping folks like ASU and GCU and the other universities. The community colleges are a huge partner. It's our role to understand what they're doing and communicate that out to the folks that may be looking to grow here.
Yeah, so for some of those individuals that may not be familiar with GPEC, can you maybe share a little bit more about what some of the companies are that you've recently helped with getting integrated into the community?
Sure, yeah. So we primarily focus on we don't do any retail or any, if someone wants to open up a Jimmy John's or something like that, we'd love to have it, but that's not what our focus area. It's more larger office and industrial type users. So the companies range from Fortune 500 companies, name brands that everybody knows. Over the last 12 months, we've helped Allstate, we've helped Avoya Financial, we've helped, companies like Zillow, that have expanded into Old Town Scottsdale. So companies, name brands that you know. Mm-hmm. There's also these companies that you may not really be aware of, but they either have a manufacturing facility that want to bring out here or distribution, or maybe it's a third party that you don't really know who they are, but they're looking to grow and expand in the market. So we'll do everything as long as it's bringing jobs, as long as it's bringing investment. We're happy to help. Data centers is another big industry sector. We work with data centers when they're looking to put massive investments. We're here to help them out. And again, some of those are name brand companies that in the news. It's been Microsoft has been out there. They're buying land to put to really grow their presence in our market. But other times you had no idea who these companies are. But that's what we're here for.
So I'm sure you have had so many tours of the Valley and get to see some really interesting things that our community has to offer. What are some different elements in our community that most people probably wouldn't know about? Could you share a little bit on that?
Yeah, it's funny because when we talk to people who are new to the market, our clients, maybe that's the first time visiting the area, or maybe they've been here but just for a vacation or for something for fun, but not from a business sense. So everyone is aware of Old Town Scottsdale. They are aware of Tempe and the Mill Avenue district because of ASU and probably downtown Phoenix. What's really interesting to see is how these other communities are really investing in their downtown. So you take Gilbert for an example. If people are not from the area, they just think Gilbert, where is that? Oh, that's way out there in the Southeast Valley, definitely a suburban community. But then you go down to their downtown area and it's vibrant and it's you might as well be in downtown Phoenix or downtown Tempe. It's great. They did a great job really investing in their downtown, and there's similar downtowns like that all over the valley. Chandler has a great downtown. Glendale has a great downtown. So in our role, we really get to see some of those unique community characteristics come out. On the West Valley too, there's a lot of new investment. We're still a new market if you compare us to a lot of our other competitor regions. You go back 50 years, there wasn't all of these loop systems, there wasn't all these highways. So a lot of that investment is happening, and like with the 303 as an example, 5 years ago that was just desert land, and now that's this really great transportation corridor that a lot of these manufacturing companies want to be near. So it's really cool to drive down that road, and what used to be desert and farmland is now these high-end manufacturing facilities and distribution facilities. It's really cool to see.
You were talking about our infrastructure, especially like the freeways and how we continue to expand that. Can you share a little bit more as far as, what's the average commute time? Like
Sure.
How far are people willing to go? I feel like there's more and more cars that continue to come into the valley. So if you could share a little bit more on that, that would be great.
Yeah, we love talking to people that are from California or even like a Dallas or Atlanta, because we will bring them out into our rush hour traffic, and they'll ask us, where's the traffic? What's happening? So I think if you're from Arizona, you get used to it and you can complain about traffic, but we're much more fortunate than some of those other competitor markets. Our average commute time as a market is roughly 25 minutes. What we've noticed is people will be comfortable commuting anywhere from like 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes up to an hour, but that's really pushing it here in the Phoenix area. We're very much a driver-centric market. We do have the light rail, which is expanding, which is great, but I would say the majority of the workforce does jump in their car and drive to work. The advantage of our market that every region is going through right now is how do you invest in infrastructure? It doesn't seem like there's enough money to go around. Our advantage is we've pre-planned this. This is not something that is new to our market. Back in the 80s and 90s, the region came together and passed a plan to have monies to invest into our public infrastructure, especially our road transportation. So that's why we have the loop system. So if you put a dot on the map anywhere within the greater Phoenix metro, you're probably within a 10 to 15 minute drive of a freeway. So you jump on the freeway and then you can get anywhere you want.
Yeah. I'm sure that certainly helps with companies when they decide on what location they're going to put their building. It probably helps with, figuring out what talent they're able to pull from.
Absolutely. And that's something that our team can really help out with, is run that commute shed analysis. And so, put a heat map of here's your potential talent pool within a 30-minute drive time or a 25-minute drive time. But that's absolutely what's driving their decision, is they want to be in an area where they can attract the best talent. The other advantage of Phoenix is there's not just one part of the valley where that's true. You could be up in Deer Valley and you can really get both East Valley and West Valley labor pool. Same thing if you're like in a downtown Phoenix or a midtown Phoenix. If you're on the East Valley, it's a very much a growing market. The West Valley is actually going to grow in the next 10 years at a higher clip than the East Valley. So a lot of companies now are looking, right, well, what if we plant our flag in the West Valley, because we know that's where the future growth is going to happen. So there's multiple options for these companies.
Yeah, I feel like every time I open the newspaper, there's a new company announcement, or, even when I'm like, meeting new people in the business community, there's so many people that have recently moved here. Can you tell us a little bit more about, how the growth is going to impact the local community and, how many people are we expecting to move here, like over the course of the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so we're at just about 4.7 million people today as a metro. And we are growing. It averages out to about 100,000 net new people every year. So the next 10 years will be another million people in our market, which is great. People love that. The communities really love that. The reason being is that's fueling a lot of our growth of having people coming in. What we're tasked with is making sure that there's good jobs and good opportunities for these people that are moving here to really contribute to the economy. So that's what our focus is, to make sure that we have a wide diversity of companies coming in. It's not just manufacturing. It's not just back office jobs. It's a mix. We're seeing a lot more technical focused jobs. So what used to be a call center, maybe a 500-person call center, now those companies are looking at, all right, we're going to have some customer service, we're going to have some sales, but we're also going to have some tech and IT workers. That makes us really happy as economic developers, because those are the higher paying jobs. Those have a bigger impact into the community, more disposable income. That's all what we're trying to do here in the economic development side. So we're really excited to see that trend.
We have Arizona State University in our backyard. Go Devils.
Yeah,
I know we're both
of them.
ASU alum. But with that, obviously they're producing over 100,000 students. They have 100,000 students that are currently going to the university. And so that is a great talent pipeline for a lot of companies here in the local market. How many of those students actually stay here? Are they leaving? Is that talent leaving, or are they actually staying in our community?
So it's a great question. We get that all the time. And ASU tracks that very heavily, and what they tell us is 70% of their graduates stay within the market after 5 years after their graduation, which is great. People do leave. It's kind of natural. Anecdotally, we hear people will come to ASU, they'll get their degree, they want to go live in a big city, San Francisco, New York, what have you. They run the rat race there for a couple of years, and then when they want to settle down, probably late 20s, early 30s, want to come back home, want to settle down, want to buy a house. It's being much more restrictive in those high cost markets for them to do that.
Absolutely. No, I've talked to a lot of different technology companies, a lot of them that were based in the San Francisco markets. And as they continue to move here, they certainly post positions. And a lot of people from those California locations are actually opting to move. They raise their hand and say, you know what, I'm in. I'm ready to buy my first house. I'm ready to settle down and have a family. And so they've decided to move. So Indeed is actually one of them.
Sure. Yeah.
We've been helping them in the Scottsdale Galleria. And they have people from all over the country that continue to say, hey, I'm happy to take that position in the other market, which I think that speaks volumes as far as the kind of community that we're building. And then obviously it's a desirable area for several elements, right? We have spring training here, having the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Arizona Cardinals. The sports life is good. We have soccer now.
Yeah.
But maybe share a little bit more about, the sports world is great. I know you have a very interesting story about the sports world,
Yes.
which you're welcome to share if you want to. And so anyways, we have athletics, which I think that's a huge part of kind of building that downtown environment. Mm-hmm. Concerts. There's a lot of great concerts. A lot of people didn't necessarily know that there's a great art scene here in the Phoenix market. So you'll see there's all these amazing murals that continue to pop up throughout the downtown area. I actually I went with the Phoenix Theater. We went on a Broadway-bound tour, and I had no idea, one, that we had so much talent just here in the Phoenix market. But then they took us on a behind-the-scenes tour of Broadway in New York, and their amount of connections and everything that they have, I was totally inspired. So working with the Arizona Ballet and the theater, Gamage Auditorium, there's a lot to see and do. So when you have free time as a professional, I know you're busy traveling all the time, but what do you like to do, and how do you like to spend your free time?
Yeah, so it's quality of life is definitely one of our strong suits as a region, and it's part of the reason why I live here and why I love it here too. We're unique. It's funny because again, we will compare ourselves to all the other competitive markets. So if you look at Denver really positions themselves as we're this outdoorsy, market. You can go skiing, and it's very that's the brand that they've built. But if you look at Phoenix, you drive 2 hours, you're in Flagstaff. You're in great alpine woods. There's skiing there. There's snow throughout the entire winter, and it's a 2-hour drive from Phoenix. You can go to 4 or 5 hours you're in San Diego and Los Angeles. Probably 3 or 4 hours you're down in Mexico and Rocky Point. So there's really not a lot of places where you can be at the beach and skiing within a 2 to 3 hour drive. But people just think Phoenix, you're desert. That's just the only thing that you have. And if I'm from Arizona, I grew up in Tucson. I came up to Arizona State. I've been here my whole life. People don't understand that the desert is beautiful. I mean, it's a great place to live. When people really come and visit, I think it really opens their eyes. But there's just, for some reason, just this negative connotation of, you live in Arizona. It's just full of the dirt and there's nothing really to do. It's like, no, if you really see it, it's amazing. And the Grand Canyon, which is amazing. It's obviously world renowned, 7 wonders of the world. And that's in our backyard, and
I highly recommend that. It took me 12 years to make it to the Grand Canyon, and I finally did it. Oh my gosh, I would highly recommend not just seeing it, but actually doing at least a small little hike.
Have to.
Once you get down there, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like it before. It's absolutely beautiful.
It's funny how many Arizona natives have not been to the Grand Canyon.
That
it's like,
is
guys,
so funny.
It's right here. You should just do it. But
so with that in mind, what are some other great things? Like if you recently moved here or you're just coming to Arizona on vacation, like what should they go and see? What are the fun things to do or explore and experience?
So definitely I would recommend if you're active and enjoy hiking, go and hike Camelback Mountain. Because there's nothing better to hike a mountain in the middle of the city and you can really see a panoramic 360-degree view of the market. It's a great hike. It's probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how fast you go. It's pretty intensive. Make sure you bring a lot of water, but it's definitely worth the reward. There's also a really great and emerging food scene here. We're ranked as one of the top markets for pizza and pizza restaurants, which is you would not think Phoenix probably, but there's a lot of world-renowned chefs and there's plenty of options to go. So for me personally, I'm hanging out in Central Phoenix a lot, downtown, the Old Town, Scottsdale area, Tempe, all have great, really cool cultures and their individual communities. There's a thing called First Fridays. It's the first Friday of every month. It's an art walk in downtown Phoenix. It's in Roosevelt Row, which is the arts district in downtown. And it's great. Even in the middle of summer when the sun goes down, it's not too bad. You can walk around. But
the food trucks?
There's food trucks. If you really want to see what is the downtown culture, what is the arts culture and the art scene here, go check out a First Friday and you'll get everything that you need in one night, which is really awesome and unique. They've been doing it for years, and now that there's been a lot more investment into downtown and people moving into downtown, it's huge, and it's a really great place to go check out.
So for those individuals that have been in the Valley for a while, prices continue to rise, especially for office space, industrial space, as well as construction. So we feel like it's continuing to elevate. But in comparison to the other markets throughout the country, how do we kind of stack up?
We're still very, very favorable, especially and you're right, the real estate market is definitely hot right now, and prices are going up. But you look at as relative, especially to, let's say, a California market. Year over year, we're probably going to be a 30 to 35% cost savings between those markets. Denver, which is, you put in the same bucket as Phoenix, would be like Phoenix, Denver, Salt Lake City, sometimes, Austin here and there, Dallas. Markets like Austin and Denver are getting really, really priced out. They've exploded in their growth. And it's really catching up with them from the cost perspective. We're a little bit further. We have a little bit more runway in our growth, so we're not seeing those crazy cost increases yet. And I continue to see that as a trend. We're still have what makes us different than a market like Seattle, for an example. There's no really room for Seattle to grow. You have Puget Sound on one side and you have mountains on the other, and there's really nowhere for them to go. Portland has the same constrictions. Same with like an Austin. But you look at markets like us or like a Dallas or Atlanta, where it's a little bit more spread out. There's still pockets of where we can grow. What's really exciting for us to see is there's a lot of this urban infill as well. We used to grow as a market very much, out into the suburbs, and that will still happen. But now people want to be into a downtown area, so we're seeing a lot more investment into downtown Phoenix, as an example. Tempe has been probably the hottest real estate market because of ASU. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to be close to ASU, not on the commercial side, but also on the residential side. People want to be close to ASU. They want to be close to those employment corridors. So that's good. That's probably the hottest market over the last 5 years.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing too is a lot of people don't realize we have a warehouse district, which is really awesome. If people haven't had an opportunity to go and explore that a little bit further, it's right by our ball fields, right by the Arizona Diamondbacks facility. Can you share what kind of companies are interested in that kind of space, and when did you really see that area to revitalize?
Yeah. So, and if anyone hasn't been to the warehouse district, go down to Galvanize.
Grab a cup of coffee.
Grab a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You could, there's a great co-working space there. So, bring your laptop and hang out for the afternoon, and really get a feel of what the warehouse district is like. That's really been, it's been around for a while, but it's really starting to see a lot of activity over the last 5 years. And the companies that are attracted to that are these usually creative type companies, tend to be tech focused, that want to be in a cool urban walkable area. What's really exciting about that is the building owners and the real estate folks, instead of purchasing all these assets and demolishing it and building some new build, which has been pretty typical, I would say, in the Phoenix area, they said, let's invest with what we have already. Let's keep some of that historic preservation there. So what used to be these old produce warehouses that have been sat vacant for decades in some cases are now receiving some really much needed TLC. They're getting some investment, and the spaces turn out really, really cool. Because if you're one of these tech companies, you don't necessarily want to go into a high rise and be on the 25th floor. And, that's just not the corporate culture for these companies, especially if they're from the Bay Area, as an example. They want to be somewhere that's a little bit more open, a little bit more creative, and that's exactly what the warehouse district is going for. So what's happening now is some of those buildings were great. They had great bones, but it would take a while to really refurbish them and get them ready to go. Now the real estate community is really taking that risk and upfront and building these spaces out. So now when we're working with tenants, they can go in, they can get a vision of what this might look like, and we're going to see a lot of projects going down there. But just because there's an opportunity there, it's something cool, it's unique, and it's definitely, from a talent attraction standpoint, is going to help those companies.
Co-working spaces seem to be popping up all over the valley, but I think it's been a great segue for a lot of those companies that are just trying to test the market, kind of dip their toes in the water, get a sense of how successful can they actually be. So based on your experience, how many companies that you work with are going that route, or are they just going all in and moving into a new space?
I think we're definitely seeing an increase of people dipping their toe in the water via co-working, and that's especially common for these high growth tech startups that just closed a Series B round of funding. They need to hire 100 more people, but they don't want to do that in San Francisco, or they can't do that in San Francisco or New York or LA. So for them, they also don't really want to sign a 5-year lease and take that risk on a market that they may not be familiar with. So with the rise of co-working, they're able to say, okay, we're going to hire our key leadership, and maybe we'll start with a small team, call it 10 to 15 over the first year or so, and really test and validate the market. We really like that because our experience is once people get here and they understand the dynamics of the market, and if we can be a resource and really connect them to the key people that they need to talk to, we have a really good success rate there. So we're probably will see that more and more often, especially as WeWork continues to really expand in our market and the other co-working providers. On the other side of the spectrum, these larger users, they've planned a little bit further ahead, where they know that they probably will be building out either a campus or a floor within a building and do a little bit more of the traditional route. However, they're always short on time. Their timeline, we asked people when do you need to move in. They said yesterday. That happens all the time. So I think the co-working would be a good bridge to that as well. So wouldn't be replacing necessarily the directed deal or the traditional lease. It'll just be the co-working will be the bridge to what that traditional deal would look like.
Well, in addition to that, I've also seen some really well-established organizations take down some additional co-working space. So they wanted to have more of that techie feel. So some major financial service companies, I know even some healthcare companies here in the local market, I mean, they have hundreds of thousands of square feet here in the community. But they're putting some of their technology operations within those co-working spaces. So I think that's been an interesting trend to see, is that it's actually going both ways. So people that are well-established are in there, and then those individuals that are just looking to ramp up.
And it's smart because if you're a company and you have a large workforce, you can't just say that one type of office is going to fit all of your workforce needs. Some people like the traditional office and they like to actually have their private office, others want to be more open and collaborative, and that they work better in that way. So if you're a company and you have that flexibility to say, here's what our traditional office space is going to look like, it's really going to cater to our certain part of our workforce, but we also want to have this cool, hip, creative, and if that's an option as an employee, they're definitely going to win the war on talent. Those job seekers would much rather work in a place where they have some of that flexibility.
So I think the easiest way to simplify everything that you do, especially on the business development side for GPEC and the rest of the team members, is that you guys are community connectors. So there's always times in which I feel like I'm always making email introductions to Thomas and the team over at GPEC because they can really help a lot of the people that I work with here in the community. So as that point of connection, you put people in contact with a lot of very unique individuals, and you're able to help them navigate so many different processes. So if you were just to put it out there in the community, who could you help and what kind of information could you help with? Could you simplify it?
Yeah. I mean, it's quite simply anyone who's looking to grow in the region, anyone who even just wants information about the market, which can range from, real estate costs and average lease rates for certain submarkets to, where's a good place for me to go because I want to, have my kid go to a great public school. We can do all of that. And again, it's not economic development is definitely a team sport. It's not just GPEC out there making all these connections. We always tell people we'll either know the answer to what you're looking for or we know somebody who can answer that for you. So the communities are a great resource. Each city has an economic development department. And they're focused just on their individual city. They're a formal part of GPEC. We have a great relationship with them, so a lot of times we're making those handoffs to those folks. At the same time, there's an organization called the Arizona Commerce Authority. They do what we do, but at the state level. They also manage all of the economic incentives. So a lot of times we're on the front end, we're talking to these companies, we're explaining the potential benefits of the market, and then we'll loop in the state and they can really take the lead on here's the incentives that the state has put together to attract these companies. And then even on the softer side of things, they want to look at what community organization should we be involved in. We want volunteer opportunities for our employees. Who should we talk to? We're always we have our Rolodex of people that we reach out to, but we're always looking for new opportunities. So if anyone wants to get involved and wants to learn more, we'd be happy to talk to them. Again, our role is we want to be the connectors. Let us make this transition smooth for people. Anything that we can do to help with that, we're more than happy to do that.
That's so awesome. No, I really appreciate you sharing a little bit more as far as how people can better navigate that process, because it can be overwhelming. Just trying to figure out, what nonprofit should I get involved with? We're brand new.
Yeah.
And I know the workforce development side is also a very interesting element. So many companies that continue to move here into the state of Arizona, they're focused on talent attraction and or retention. So what are some additional tools, resources, or models that you've seen that have helped companies to be successful here in the local market?
Yeah, the really successful companies, there are some public support on the workforce side. There's resources available. So that's the first step. City of Phoenix has its own workforce department. Because the City of Phoenix is so large, it's the 5th largest city in the U.S., they receive federal funds directly to run a workforce development department. And that department is in charge of Not only could they do job postings, but they can help out with setting up interview space. If you're located within the city of Phoenix, you want to connect to folks that are looking for jobs. They're your one-stop shop to really help you navigate that process.
And I am familiar with them, and I know that they actually will help companies even outside of the city of
Correct.
Phoenix.
Yeah, they're a great partner. The county has its own version of that as well that can handle a little bit more broad-based. But yeah, the city of Phoenix team is super helpful on that. So those are the at least the low-hanging fruit that each company should at least be aware of. And if there's not, we're happy to make introductions there. There's also a new initiative that we're working on. It's actually our partner organization, PEI, the Partnership for Economic Innovation, has a program called Pipeline AZ. And it's really specifically designed for workforce. Really, the goal of this is to connect the job seeker to the employer. And the genesis of it was when it was actually for people who are recently leaving the military. People would leave the military, they would have great experience, but they would ask you for your resume, and these military folks, and you're very familiar with, working closely with the military. The job titles don't make any sense for the private, citizen. Those roles, the skills translated, but it's hard to really bridge that gap. So Pipeline AZ has a software that is skills-based, not necessarily what your job role was, what company did you work for, but what skills did you learn in your past, and how does that translate to what these employers are seeking. So it's the goal is to be a complement to all the other resources out there, but to really help not only the job seeker, but the employers who are looking for talent.
So for those individuals that want to learn more or want to connect with you to ask you some additional questions, what's the best way to connect with you?
So go to our website, gpec.org. You can see the Contact Us page, and it has our lovely mugshots of all the folks on our team. Contact anybody on the business development team. You'll be your resource. We can connect you to anything that we talked about today. But yeah, gpec.org is a good place to start, and we're happy to be a resource.
Great. Thank you again, Thomas, for being here today. We look forward to continuing the conversation.
Happy to do it. Thanks for having me.